yeah, so Praxis Mutual Funds and Everest Financial. I'd actually like Michelle to answer that last Bruce's question, in part in relationship to the final slide you showed us, where you did touch on the divestment issue, because I think one of the things that's out there in the divestment movement is that it somehow is a simple task. All we got to do is sort of clear a few corners out, and we'll make the shift. And we're not talking apples and oranges here. And I wonder if you could just expand a little bit more, because you included it in some of your points and help us understand why it isn't just like a type of project to get that done.
Yeah, I mean, essentially with the last slide, you're referring to the slide where we showed what the other industries are, and this is all part of a white paper that's available out in the public domain, where we talk about the divestment challenge. And as we note, I mean, if you're thinking about trying to do something with the $5 trillion that are invested in these fossil fuels, you're going to be thinking about what other asset classes are available, maybe in the clean energy side, maybe in industry it's adjacent. We call it adjacent to clean energy, whether it be IT, there's even some linkages with pharma, with auto. And in every case, we basically kind of found that, first of all, the clean energy universe at this point couldn't absorb that amount of funding. It's not kind of clear where that would go. If you look at what the universe size is for asset financing or for investing in equities in the clean energy side, for green bonds, the numbers have grown. Again, they're in the hundreds of billions of dollars at this point, but not enough to kind of absorb that. And of course, there's the issue that oil and gas companies offer all kinds of benefits to investors. Liquidity is a very strong point. Obviously the size, the scale, and the consistency of and the yield that they can offer.
But here's my question, or actually a point to share with folks as we think about messaging to our investment committees, to our CIOs and others, is to sort of decide what you're really looking for. You're looking for impact, or you're looking to make a statement. And the reason I share that is there's been some very important research done, starting with True Cost and now being done at MSCI, about what happens in terms of the carbon footprint of a portfolio when one pursues divestment. And what they're finding is that in a number of cases, one can divest of a particular list and end up with a higher carbon footprint than they did when they started out. And the reason being that what happens in many portfolios, particularly for using managers that are not skilled, like some of the managers you're talking to here and others in the room that understand the interactions in this space, what can happen is that a manager will just move to the next similar thing. And so you take out an oil company, but you end up with more heavy industry, you end up with utilities, all of which are putting oftentimes more carbon into the atmosphere than the oil companies themselves. And so one needs to make sure one knows what one's after. If you're into keeping with the list and you want to make a statement and lending that to the conversation, that's one thing. If you're wanting to make an impact, if you just need to think through that process and what you really want to be done. I know we're in the process of looking at carbon footprinting our own portfolios prior to the new implementation of the new screening machine that Benji mentioned, and now after a year's worth of experience afterwards. And I don't know, Ken, if you've done any work with carbon footprinting in some of your funds and maybe have some experience to share, but I think that's something one should think about, because it may mean communicating more to those managers, because I mean, if they're just used to implementing your restricted list, they can do that, and as Ken suggested, there certainly are managers out there who have the ability to do that and maintain performance. I'm not sure it applies to every manager, but this is a real conversation I think you want to have, and you need to know where you're trying to get to when you go into that process.
That's a terrific point, Mark, and it is a more complicated challenge if you're looking to impact. One of the things that we've noticed, for example, we carbon footprint all of our funds and track them. But one of the things that happens if you are involved in taking, for example, a fund that is a best-in-class fund and invests in insurance companies and healthcare in a very wide range, you're exposed to the carbon footprint of the global economy. We're investing to a large extent in solutions, and an awful lot of solutions are actually require making things. So if you look at the typical portfolio of an impacts fund, it's skewed industry heavy, because energy efficiency companies, by and large, are creating things. Sometimes it's software, but often it's stuff. So it's the case that we can wind up with a fund that is having a terrific impact in reducing, if you look to the second and third order, in reducing the carbon generation or the fossil fuel consumption in the economy in the real world, but the portfolio could look rather carbon heavy compared to some others which are simply more broadly diversified. So as we all get more sophisticated, and we've had conversations with TrueCost about this, and they're thinking about it, it's going to take more money and research and more people being interested, we will eventually get a more sophisticated metric, but that's going to be part of the process going forward.